Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of BrainScratch Searchlight. I'm your host John Lorden, and today we're going to be looking into the case of Christopher Allen Temple. And before we get started, I have to give a huge thank you to Saffron Sugar. That's her YouTube handle if you see her in the comments. She also goes by D, but thank you so much, Saffron Sugar. D, I'm not sure what you prefer to be called, but I really appreciated your message. She sent me some information on this Chris Temple case, and although there's not a lot of info to go over, I was really compelled to do this case somewhat quickly when I bumped into a message that his parents had put out, and we're going to get to that fairly soon here. But let's start by taking a look. Here is, I think this is probably the last known photograph of him. I haven't seen very many others. Here you can see they've worked with it and done some composites to age him a little bit. So there's a good view of Chris and possibly what he would look like now. So when I did my research on this, like I mentioned at first, there was hardly anything to review, but I bumped into this letter by his parents. So let me share that with you real quick. This is from the Lansing State Journal, and this is just a letter to the editor that was posted on June 8th, 2015. Don't forget about our missing son. We would like to remind the media and public that another person has also been missing for 25 years, a fact the media have obviously forgotten or ignored. Christopher Temple was at Rose Lake on Earth Day, April 22nd, 1990, with some friends. Everybody came home safely, except for Chris. He hasn't been home since. We haven't been as fortunate as the Renkowski family to have continuous investigations regarding our son. No fanfare, no massive searches, no cold case detectives. Help? Not much. Are we frustrated? Yes. Are we disappointed? Yes. Does anyone care? Yes, we do. We hope you will remember. We always will. John and I believe it's Tawny. I'm not sure if it's Tony, but John and Tawny Temple. So to the parents of Chris, when I saw this message, it really moved me. And despite how much or how little information there may be, I wanted to make an episode about it. So once again, thank you to Dee for pushing this my way and giving me some personal insight also, which we'll go over a little bit later. So what happened to Chris Temple? And this is a pretty old case. You know, we're looking at a disappearance that happened in 1990. Obviously from this, I can get the sense that his parents have seen another missing persons investigation that's been going on recently, and they're feeling a little bit hurt that this new investigation is getting a lot of attention, and they don't feel like theirs got a whole lot. And from what I can see, it doesn't appear that it did. Now, it's a little hard because internet records aren't quite as solid once you start reaching that far back, you know, into the early 90s before everyone was really thinking about putting this stuff online. But basically, I can't find any straight up media news stories on this. So it makes it pretty hard to investigate. However, some of the standard websites that are very good about trying to post information about missing people have some information on Chris. So let's take a look at those. Starting at missingkids.org, here we have the poster. And just in case you didn't know, that's for the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. I believe John Walsh helped start this, and I talked about this a little bit in the Geek and Dorks review that you're going to see tomorrow. So Christopher Temple, missing since April 22nd, 1990, missing from Bath, Michigan. His date of birth was May 18th, 1972. He would be 44 now. Male, white, brown hair, hazel eyes, 5'7", about 130 pounds at the time he went missing, and you can see here they have an age progression. I'm pretty amazed at some of the artists that do these age progressions. This one in particular looks like a job really well done, so I just wanted to call that out. It's a definite talent, and what an amazing gift to give to cases like this to try to help people. Christopher's photo is shown age progressed to 39 years, so I guess that's about 5 years ago now. He was last seen about 9 p.m. at a recreational area where he was camping with some friends. He wears contact lenses. He was last seen wearing a black t-shirt with a rock group design on it, jeans, and a faded jean jacket. Now, of all the information I've found, I have not found out any information about what rock band that was on his shirt. I don't know if that information is being kept to help the investigation. You know, if sometimes if someone has information, they'll look for a key clue to that information to validate that person. And it could be that if someone called up and said, yeah, I know it was him because his shirt was Metallica or something like that, you know, that might prompt the authorities to put a little more stock in that information. But I don't know which band was on his shirt, but it is stated regularly. And of course, here we have contact information. If you check out the description box below, as usual, I will include the contact information. So if you have any information on Chris Temple, you can get that forwarded to the proper people and hopefully help with this case. Let's head on over to the charleyproject.org, who also did a profile on him. We won't go over the vital stats again. It's pretty much a match, except they note that Christopher has a small scar on his nose. So that's a little something that was missing from the previous one. Let's go to the details of disappearance here. Christopher was camping with 4 friends in Bath Township, Michigan on April 22nd, 1990, prior to his high school graduation. He was last seen at the Rose Lake Recreation Area on the campground at approximately 9 p.m. They had made a campfire there, and Christopher walked into the surrounding woods and never returned. He has never been heard from again. He was a senior at East Lansing High School at the time of his disappearance. Christopher was initially believed to be a runaway by authorities, but it is now suspected that foul play may have been involved in his disappearance. His case remains unsolved. I've seen this in a few places that the authorities believe that he was a runaway, and I don't know why. I wish that we had more information about this case. Was there something that they had that triggered that thought? I haven't seen any details about him having a vehicle of any kind to be able to run away with. You know, he's out camping with friends near a lake. Is that really the best place where you're going to stage a runaway if you're going to do that? Was there something that prompted him to want to run away? But for me, the story just doesn't quite fit right. If he's hanging out with his friends at the lake and they're having a good time, why is that going to be his final straw? And you know, if it was kind of a twitch decision or something that came out of nowhere, why is it going to happen in that environment? It really doesn't make sense to me. I think runaways would likely do just a little bit of planning, maybe potentially get some money together so they could get a bus somewhere, maybe grab some of their belongings. There's no details, and quite honestly, there's very thin details in this case. I keep saying that, but I just have to stress it. There's no details that give me a good reason why the authorities would have believed that he was a runaway. Was that potentially just a stopping block that they could give the parents as kind of an excuse for why they're not going to work on the case very diligently? I hope it's not true, but quite honestly, I just don't know. I could not find any warnings about this particular place. However, there are some conversations that we're going to get to a little bit later that may shed some light on a potential threat in that area. So one of the few things you could find if you Google Chris Temple is this conversation, and admittedly, I wasn't sure that I wanted to cover it when I saw it was at a place that was calling it Ghost Gallery, but once you see the content of this, I think it might change your mind a little bit. This is from joanpaulettedudley.wordpress.com and was posted on January 12th, 2009. Let's just jump into the middle of Joan's article here. He was a sweet kid, very gentle and quiet. I knew him because he came to the house where I lived to buy pot. While his friends were upstairs negotiating, he would sit in the smoking lounge with me. I don't remember talking to him, but I remembered I liked him. Then he disappeared. Last anyone saw him, he was at a 2-track party out at Rose Lake. At one point, he left the bonfire, walked into the woods, and was never seen again. His parents made flyers with his yearbook photo and plastered them all over town. Perhaps he had been kidnapped or hitchhiked with the wrong person. Most likely, the culprit was Rose Lake itself. Michigan is full of wetlands, or what would be called swamps, further south. The ground is soft and spongy and has patches of quicksand. Maybe the earth itself took him. And that's not the only place where I see information that kind of alludes to that. But once again, I'm just really surprised that they don't have that on the recreational websites, that there's some kind of quicksand threat or marshy areas where people might get stuck or otherwise hurt themselves. But let's keep rolling along. Over to Webslueths.com, And Magnolia Mountain had a couple of ideas here. These are posted April 2013. He could have had an accident / gotten lost in the woods and his body was never found, or he had an altercation with the people he was camping with and came to harm, or they did drugs together. He OD'd and the others disposed of his body. I doubt he just took off voluntarily and hasn't contacted his family and friends for such a long time. And I have to agree with Magnolia Mountain. I think she makes, I'm assuming it's a she, makes a lot of interesting points here, kind of running the gamut of theories that really should be looked at. Was there some type of fight that happened between the friends there? And how far did that fight go? Was there something else? Maybe he was impaired and went out into the woods and hurt himself. I just find that this is a very concise list of several theories that really apply well to the information that we do have about this case. So finally, let's take a look at just some of the email that Saffron Sugar sent me. So without going into the whole email, right before this section, she mentions that there might have been some name calling or something like that, and that Chris became hurt or a little upset at it. So let's pick it up from there. Apparently, he was angry. After a short period of time, he got up and walked into the woods. Everyone assumed that he was going to the bathroom. He never came back. I've heard so many stories on this, and I'm not sure what is true. I heard that one of his shoes was found in the mucky pond. I also did see that as well over at Webslueths, and people were asking for a reference article of some kind, and no reference was there. Of course, I've reviewed everything about this person, and I did not see any reference to a shoe being found, but at least an official news report of that or of any kind, but I did see it mentioned by a few people, so I just wanted to put that out there. In Webslueths, I read that some people thought that his friends could have killed him. I couldn't imagine that. Absolutely not. Although Chris and I were not very close, he was part of my crowd, and he and I had hung out on our own once or twice. After high school, I left and moved to England, but I never forgot about Chris. I'm still in touch with some of the people who were there that day. Nobody has any idea what has become of him. And that is one thing that is very apparent to me, is people care about this guy. Even on that previous article from the blog that I mentioned, if you go down into the comments, there is another person that knew him that is speaking up there. And everyone is a bit unsettled about what happened to him. Apparently, he was a pretty nice kid, and people just can't seem to let this go, and I'm pretty sure that's why Saffron Sugar shot this my way so that we could take a look at it. Unfortunately, like I said, I've reviewed with you pretty much everything that's out there. If you do a Google search on Christopher Allen Temple, you'll get about a page and a half of results that actually apply to him, and all the information that is in those we have reviewed here. So pretty much this is as much as we know about this case. I know it's not a whole lot, but I think it's a decent starting point. Let's finish just by keeping his photo up here. If the authorities did consider him a runaway, there is a chance that this man might be out there in the world somewhere, and potentially you or someone you know might know him. So I do think that the parents, especially if this is what they were told by the authorities, would have some reason to have a sense of hope that he might still be out there and possibly be found at some point. We don't know the interpersonal dealings of that family. We don't know if he had some very good reason to run away and never look back. You never know those types of details until you get to the other side of the story, and sometimes these people return, and we have seen cases where people have been found 30 or more years after they've gone missing. So I don't think any of us should give up hope on that possibility. With all that being said, there's other things to look at here. If he was potentially harmed by one of his friends, maybe there's someone out there that has some information about what went down and they're looking to finally share that. Of course, you could do that anonymously using the information I have in the description box below. It's really not fair that this kid goes missing and his story just ends at that point, and he leaves all these friends that care about him and two parents that obviously care about him very deeply behind, with literally no answers as to what happened to him. So if nothing else, to Christopher's parents, know that there are more of us out here that care about him also. And I hope that just me being a little blip on YouTube of his story and his information might help shake something else loose and help push us closer to the truth of what happened to Chris Temple. So here's where I hand it over to you, Brain Scratchers. What do you think about this case? Are there any aspects we haven't dug up? If you find new information, have new links, please post that in the comments below. That's one of the things I'm most proud of about these shows is they don't end when I shut off the camera. That's really just the start, because then all of you wonderful brains out there get to review this info, share your thoughts and feelings, and further research with me. And that comment section down below turns into a wonderful thing. I've heard it time and time again. So please do your usual great work. See if you could find out some more info about this. Add it to the comments below. If you have other theories about what could have potentially happened to him, I'm also looking forward to seeing those from you guys. So if there's any takeaways that we could get from this story, I think it's, if you're faced with this case and you're the parents of someone that has gone missing, do everything you can to raise awareness to it. And nowadays is considerably easier than it was in 1990 for sure. In 1990, passing around posters was probably your number one best bet, which his family definitely did. But if you couldn't hook the media's attention, that's pretty much all you had. And I've talked about in videos before, the media loves to tell a missing person story with a very specific type of profile of person. And unfortunately, Chris is not a young woman with blonde hair. So they were definitely less likely to cover his story back at that time. However, I don't think that means that we have to give up now. And hopefully we can shake something out of all this. So thank you so much for joining me again on this episode of BrainScratch Searchlight. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please share this if you have friends in the Michigan area. My heart goes out to Chris's family, and once again, I hope that you guys see this message and know there's a bunch of us out here that care what happened to Chris Temple. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you on the next show on the Geek and Dorks channel.